Hello, everybody. Kevin J. Johnston here. Welcome to the Tax and Money Show, which runs every single Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on freedomreport.ca. Special guest Brett Oland, the CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union, is joining me right away. This is the only bank manager, bank anything, bank owner, bank CEO guy, bank anybody in Canada who's brave enough to come on this show. Now, what does that tell you, everybody? We've only got one man wanting to come on the Kevin J. Johnston experience. Is this guy here so bad? Is it really so bad to be on my show? Well, I don't think Brett thinks so, which is why he is here. And I'm going to dive right into it because Brett has got to go. Exactly 1 hour from now, he's out the door. So, Brett, thank you so much for being on the show once again. It is an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell the world who you are. Go ahead.
Appreciate you having me on again. Thanks for the great intro. Brett Oland, CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union here in Alberta. We're considered a large credit union. We've got about 600 million in assets, and we're pretty much across Alberta. 7 branches, soon to be 9 branches. We're expanding like crazy, and love conversations like this about exactly what you're talking about. So.
Finance, commerce. Okay, so for those who don't know, just give us the 1 minute version. What's the difference between a credit union and a bank? Go ahead.
Sure. We're member owned. We're not shareholder owned. In Canada, they're considered, banks are considered monopolistic oligopolies. A lot of them are owned by foreign actors. And so effectively credit unions look out for your better interests. There's profit share with credit unions. And we're regulated differently. We're not regulated by OSFI and Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney. We're regulated provincially, which is can come in handy and is a very big difference.
So when the Ottawa Truckers party was going on, you didn't get any phone calls from the federal government, did you?
I didn't get any phone calls, although we do fall under FinTrack, which is the same regulatory standard, but we didn't receive one phone call, one email, one letter regarding freezing people's accounts. And we just found it appalling, especially here in Alberta, that financial institutions were closing people's accounts, even at ATB, which I thought they were on our side, apparently not, freezing people's accounts. And that continues to happen today, where we'll have somebody walk in the door and they say, hey, I received this letter that says I'm getting locked out of my account in 30 days. I need to close it out. And they don't give any rationale. They just say, you're outside of our risk profile and goodbye, see you later. So
that actually happened to a very good client of mine, owned a restaurant, still owns it at 44 years, same restaurant, same location. He just didn't want to have a pride flag in front of his restaurant. That's all he said. Take it somewhere else. And enough people complained to the bank that Royal Bank, a federally chartered bank, chose to tell him after 40 plus years of doing business that they no longer wanted to do business. He had to shut down his accounts and go. Wow.
Yep. No, it's just unbelievable, and that's a big part of it. We're here to provide a financial service to our members. We're not here to give you a lecture. And it seems that more and more these days, financial institutions want to sit you down and tell you what you should believe, which is just unbelievable. So
yeah, and I know I'm in this business to make money. I think that anybody should be getting into business to make money, and everyone's money's got the same value, you know. So let's do business. I don't understand this idea that somebody thinks that they're going to get rich by excluding a swath of the populace. It's bizarre. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. And it's they have no problem canceling some forms of racism and some forms of thought process and political process, but others not. And, you know, that effectively to me is a socialist society. We're talking about Marxism, and I want no part of that. So,
yeah, no, me either. Now, last question before we get into what you wanted to talk about. Let's just say, for argument's sake, the province of Alberta becomes the 51st state. Do you think that your business will shrink or grow?
I think it'll grow. It's definitely going to be regulated differently, and we follow different rules. What was really interesting is Trump's rhetoric around letting U.S. banks into Canada. I think they would probably choke before they got through all the regulations that Canadian banks have. And that's saying something, right? The American banks are very secure and up to snuff, but it pales into comparison to what Canadian banks and financial institutions have to get regulated by. And it really just goes down to the cost to the customer and the member at the end of the day, which is really unfortunate. So,
all right, for those on TikTok and over here on Kick and on Instagram, I'm speaking to Brett Oland, who is the CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union, the only CEO of any bank brave enough to come on this show. And Brett, there's some really important things to cover tonight. So you have a slideshow you'd like to bring up. Please give us some backstory on the slideshow and let's get into it.
Sure. What really started this process is I've been following Mark Carney for probably about 2 years. And not necessarily that I realized that he was going to be the leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada, but he was very heavily involved, of course, when he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. And then shortly after he was the governor of the Bank of Canada and printed a bunch of money in Canada, he went over to the Bank of England and effectively did the same thing. You hear lots of things on X and other platforms about how he effectively did a real number on the UK. And I think it's a result of a lot of his policies. Unfortunately, I think this is a very scary individual. He's bought into the climate change rhetoric, and he is using his knowledge to basically manipulate the economy in any way he can, especially with banking. And that's a terrible precedent to set in my mind. Again, with a socialism, Marxism theme, that's exactly what they did in Soviet Russia. There was somewhere in the order of 6,000 banks prior to Soviet Russia, and they condensed it down to one. And when you do that, you could basically kiss your freedoms to goodbye, because if you get on the wrong side of the government and hence the bank, then you don't have a bank account and you can't buy anything, and good luck finding work and things like that. So it's an incredibly powerful tool that he knows he wields. And in my mind, Mark Carney is much higher up the food chain than somebody like Justin Trudeau, who it's pretty clear in my mind he was following orders. And Mark Carney has been called the Dark Lord of Finance for a reason. He has a very firm grasp on banking and central banking. And I don't believe what I'm seeing before my eyes is people flip-flopping back to the Liberal Party as we have an election coming up here on April 28th, and what it could potentially do to this country because of his stance on climate change and intermingling within banking. So,
yeah, okay. For those who are concerned about climate change, it's not a thing. And Canada and Panama, as I just learned this weekend, are both carbon negative. That's correct. We got to start burning more wood in Panama and Canada to keep the trees alive. That's just how it works. Please don't buy into any of the nonsense you keep hearing about carbon bad. We are carbon. You know that, right? My God. Mark, sorry. We're talking Mark Carney here. Brett, CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union in Alberta. Could you please bring up the slideshow? Let's get right into this.
You bet. Let's see what we can get here. Just bear with me while I bring it up. Can you see it there?
I can. There we are.
Right. So I got a lot of attention around effectively an open letter that I wrote not even a week and a half ago around what I think is happening here. And to give credit where credit is due, I follow a lot of Tom Luongo's work out of the United States, and this is piggybacking on his work, as well as adding in some solutions to what I think specifically Alberta can do to prevent what, in my mind, is on a global scale, what people are trying to do and take control over the US dollar. And I can sort of get into the details of that, but the crux of it is, whatever you want to call them, the world elite, Davos, the Europeans, whoever you want to name as what's happening there, they're effectively, for the past number of years, taking control of pricing US dollars. And once Trump got into power, he recognized this almost a couple of years into his first term and started changing the system from what's called LIBOR, which is the London overnight banking rate, to a new system called SOFR, which basically puts the power of pricing dollars back into the US's hands. And so I can sort of get into detail, the nitty gritty of this, because I think it's important to do. But effectively, Trump snuffed out this system that they were using to price US dollars over in Europe. And effectively, what I see is Carney trying to do the same system over here in Canada. But part of the problem is the Canadian dollar is much smaller than the euro. If you're familiar with the DXY, the Dixie, it's basically a basket of currencies that prices the US dollar. And 60% of that basket is the euro. Only 3% is the Canadian dollar. So effectively, if Carney is successful in creating this, what I term loony dollar system, he'll crush the Canadian dollar to a point of oblivion, because they'll try and control the price of US dollars via the Canadian dollar versus the euro, which is a much smaller market, which is going to result in massive amounts of inflation. So
yeah. So what do people do in Canada? Do they just buy crypto with it and sit right out the storm, or what?
Well, what I'm proposing is I'm a big gold and silver guy. Do your own homework, of course. Bitcoin is as well as another neutral reserve asset. Real estate isn't a bad investment, but you have to understand that all investments have some inherent risk involved. You know, in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, it's a fairly new asset class. There could potentially be problems with it. We don't know. It seems to be unhackable. It seems to promote deflation. But part of the challenge is what if the internet goes down? Then what do you do? But even with the asset in gold and silver, what about if nobody takes it as a medium of exchange? What about if you forget where you buried it in the backyard? You know, that type of thing. There's so different asset classes have different risks associated with them, and it's just important for people to start thinking about that type of thing. So, all
right. So the loony dollar system. What is this? We've got your slideshow going here.
Sure. So this stems from what's called the euro dollar system. And don't worry if you don't get this right away. Maybe you could rewatch the video. Perhaps you read the article. Perhaps you read my paper, and it might come into better focus. This is a really simplified version, because what I want to do is effectively get this information out to people, and it without all the nuance that potentially could be in it. So anyway, I need to sort of explain what the euro dollar system is first before I get into the loony dollar system, what I think that Mark Carney is trying to do.
Go ahead.
So this stems from the European countries, and it started back in the 50s. And if you remember, the Eurozone wasn't always the Eurozone. It was a bunch of different countries, if you know, remember that. And it had every single country had its different bonds and treasury bills and currency. And when they combined all these countries over in Europe together, they came up with this euro. And the euro dollar system's effectively been operating since the 50s. And so because most commodities around the world are denominated in US dollars. Countries around the world need US dollars to pay for those assets. And probably the biggest one is fossil fuels, oil and gas. And that's the lion's share of what is priced in US dollars. And that's a result of what's called the petrodollar system. In the 70s, they effectively the US made a deal with Saudi Arabia to price all their oil and gas in US dollars. So now, all these European countries need access to US dollars. And part of the challenge is a lot of the time they don't have those US dollars. So what they have to do is either in the bottom left-hand corner, they can sell products and services to the United States, and then the US sends them US dollars. But as we know, in a lot of the socialist countries around the world, they like to ring up their debt. So what they do is they sell a treasury bond or debt in US dollars, and then basically use that to subsidize their governments. So now, once they sell that debt, it goes back into the European countries and they, spin it out to their socialist programs. But part of the challenge is they need to make coupon payments on that debt. And so at the Bank of England, it's a very different proposition than most other central banks around the world. The Bank of England has what's called infinite rehypothecation. And really, in a nutshell, without the $10 word there, is that means that they can use the collateral of the US debt and then infinitely create more currency with it, and is effectively what they're doing. Isn't it very interesting that Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of England, and so he would understand this? And so say you have debt of $100 billion or something like that goes into the European country and they spend it. They need to pay the coupon payments on that. And say the coupon payments are $5 billion per year on that. So as long as they make that $5 billion payment on the original debt, they can infinitely rehypothecate or infinitely create money. And what they've really done is used all that money in the euro dollar system to control the price of US dollars. And so when a European nation issues a bunch of debt and says, I don't want to pay 5% for that, I only want to pay 3% for that, because they have so much weight in the market with these trillions and trillions of dollars that are outstanding, they're actually, the tail is wagging the dog, if you will, on this system. So maybe I'll pause there, Kevin, and see if you have any questions on that.
Well, aside from the $10 word, this is something that I understand, because I can tell you, we did a 5-part series on what currency is back in 2021. And that was in the midst of all the COVID nonsense. So I found that by the time our 5-part series was done, is that we had people kind of dropping off towards the end. It wasn't exciting enough to talk about it. But this is actually quite thrilling, what you're talking about. The only question here is the DXY. How many countries' currencies are in that basket? And please, folks, money is not boring. Don't drop off. Stick around here what this guy's got to say, okay? Right, the DXY, you're saying there's a basket full of international currencies that could possibly collectively compete with the US dollar. Just give me an idea of who's in there.
Right. And so all currencies around the world are relative. So it's the DXY is just a pricing of the US dollar. So as mentioned, it's 60% made up of the euro, 3% made up of the Canadian dollar. There's Japanese yen in there. There's Swiss franc in there. So various other currencies basically dictate the price of the US dollar based on their currencies. And so if the Canadians do something really stupid, like give universal basic income or something like that, effectively our dollar will drop against the DXY, the Dixie. And it's just, if you think of currencies, it's just all water levels relative to other water levels. And so they go up and down based on how the other currencies are doing.
Okay. And Carney, let's just say Carney wins this election. We know how crazy he's going to be with continuing mass spending. How long does the Canadian dollar have if that's going to be the case?
Well, let me get into this first. So Trump basically ended this system of the tail wagging the dog. And how he did that, you don't really need to understand this, but he moved from a rate set by the Bank of London or Bank of England to SOFR. And so it's basically the US dictating the price of money versus London dictating the price of money. And so that's a big difference. And he did that in his first term, started the process towards this because he recognized this problem of the tail wagging the dog a long time ago. And just recently, in I think it was July of 2023, they switched over from the London system to the American system. And isn't it just interesting that the game started to fall apart right around then? And we've all sort of seen what happened in 2024 and the result of Trump getting into power. And so what Trump has done is he's moved the system of pricing over to the US, and as well as you've all heard of the things that have been happening with US aid, basically Trump cutting off all the funding to all these things that were sending dollars over to European countries so they could pay the coupon payments to make this game continue.
Okay. Well, will your slideshow clear this up for all of us?
Well, let's hope. So here's the current setup, and I think what Mark Carney is basically involved with. And so if you think of the euro-dollar system ending, the Europeans are looking for another solution, how they could effectively create another large money operation that they can fund all their debt over in Europe. And so enter Mark Carney. And this starts in the slide down at the bottom here where it says Alberta, because 80% of the trade surplus with the United States is in oil and gas. Like it or not, elbows up, Team Canada, doesn't matter. Most of the trade surplus comes out of Alberta and our shipment to oil down to the US. And so what happens is the oil production gets shipped to the US and they send US dollars into the oil companies and royalties to Alberta, and it ends up in commercial banks and then into the Bank of Canada and then into the Treasury, and then they can make coupon payments on the US debt the same way they did in the euro dollar system, but except now they're basically using the Canadian dollar to siphon money and pay for all these ridiculous programs over in Europe, and are effectively trying to take control over the pricing of the US dollars once again. And so they basically got blocked by the change Trump made in his first term. They got blocked by cutting off all the US aid funding. And so now they need a new source of funding. And effectively, that's what I think Mark Carney is doing, is creating the system so they can try and control the price of world dollars again. And part of the thing is, this all falls apart if US dollars don't get into the system. So what I'm proposing, and what I proposed into the paper, is rather than the Alberta government putting their money into US dollars, they use it to purchase gold. And if you purchase gold, it's a store of value that you could actually go right to the Trump administration and say, hey, look, we understand what's happening here. We don't want the Bank of Canada to get a control of these US dollars. As the Alberta government, we're going to put our store of value in precious metals. And oh, by the way, we're going to buy them from the United States, so we're going to reduce the trade surplus. So what you need to understand, if you reduce this trade surplus to a small enough point, this system of the loonie dollar system effectively breaks, and they can't play their game in pricing the US dollars anymore. And I think Trump understands this. And I think Jerome Powell, who is the head of the central bank in the United States, the Fed, I think Vance understands this, and I think the Secretary Treasury Bessent understands this. And so that's why there's always been this rhetoric with Canada of we need to get this trade surplus eliminated, because as long as that trade surplus is around, then they could perpetuate this loony dollar system. So effectively what Trump will keep on with the Trump rhetoric, with the tariff rhetoric, and will continue until that trade surplus disappears, because he understands the system and doesn't want to fund it anymore. He wants control of his US dollar.
So essentially, I think after all that sentence you've just said there, Trump is going to spank the Liberal Party should they win come this November, and Carney is going to have to tuck tail between his legs and essentially do what he's told. That's what it sounds like to me.
He's trying to play the game. I don't think he's going to fool Trump. It doesn't, in my mind, I've been thinking about this. It doesn't matter who gets into power in Canada. It doesn't matter if it's Poilievre. It doesn't matter if it's Carney. Trump will take control of his US dollar. And enough of this funny business, because that's where things go awry in the world, is access to dollars. And you notice all the politicians clamoring about all these programs getting cut off. The world is healing because basically the US is allowed to price its dollars and basically says no more nonsense. And in my mind, Europe is effectively in what's called a sovereign debt crisis. And so they've spent way too much money with all these programs and got in way over their head and need something to basically collapse the system. Is that the Ukraine-Russian war? Is that movement to a central bank digital currency, which Christine Lagarde announced that was coming this October in Europe? Maybe. But effectively, what they're using is Canadians' commodities and Canadians' collateral to basically continue to fund this system. And that's where I have a big problem with it. It's don't drag us down as well with this system over in Europe. We don't want to play this game.
Well, I can tell you this. I don't want to play it either. And the reason is, with me being down here in Panama, and I'll tell you, this is the God's honest truth here. I tapped my Visa card, boop, 4,800 US dollars. I flipped when I saw the email drop in one minute later telling me I just spent 7,100 Canadian. Holy smoke. What is going on? So imagine, I guess, a year from now, if Trump is going to be spanking the Canadians, saying stay away from this European nonsense and shenanigans, could the Canadian dollar drop below 50 cents US?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Wow.
And something like this, because the euro, as mentioned before, is so much bigger than the Canadian dollar, it's like trying to put an elephant through the eye of a needle. And so it would degrade the Canadian dollar much faster than it would the euro. And so the fuse is lit. The runway is a lot shorter than they realize. So I think a lot of things are going to start coming to a head in the next 6 months to a year around this.
Well, here's hoping it doesn't drop anymore, because it really hurts to convert Canadian to US right now. It hurts.
Well, and that's why we're big proponents of things like precious metals and Bitcoin, just because it does, to some degree, if not the whole way, protect against that devaluation of your currency.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so back to the slideshow here.
Yeah, and so what's really interesting, and take her or leave her, but over the weekend, Danielle Smith announced that they want to start taking royalties in bitumen. So for viewers that aren't familiar with that, it's basically heavy oil. They're willing to take royalties in heavy oil. So whether she read my paper or understands this inherently or had a conversation with Trump, basically what she's doing is not allowing the US to royalties be paid in US dollars so the system can perpetuate. And so effectively cutting off the government from being able to for this loony dollar system to function, which is really interesting. And so if you take your royalties in bitumen or oil and then you send it over to refiners in Europe or something like that, all of a sudden you cut off the supply of US dollars to the commercial banks and the Bank of Canada within Canada. Now, probably even a better scenario is that the Alberta government buys all the oil directly from the oil companies and then sends the production to the United States. And that way they can control the flow of the US dollars once more and cutting the snake off at the head and not allowing the loony dollar system to perpetuate. And so, number one, we would be able to not cut off oil and gas, because don't fool yourself. If Trump cannot get control of his dollar system, he will cut off Alberta oil. He needs control of the US dollar. And so with this method, you can either price it in bitumen or you can price it in gold, but just keep it out of US dollars so those US dollars quit flowing. And basically, we get the best of both worlds. We don't have Trump cut us off, our oil and gas production, but we also snuff out this loony dollar system so they can't perpetuate their nonsense over in Europe with their wars and their social agenda.
All right, for those who are curious, the gentleman who's speaking right now is Brett Oland, the CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union. They are based in the Canadian province of Alberta. We've sent a lot of clients Brett's way, and everybody that we send to this particular credit union, Bow Valley Credit Union, are exceptionally happy with the service. In fact, all of the clients we've sent you are happy. So thank you, Brett, for being awesome at what you do, and thanks for being here tonight. We're talking everybody about Mark Carney and whatnot, the new unelected Prime Minister of Canada, and what his potential plan could be to ruin Canada further than what Trudeau has done under probably Mark Carney's guidance. All right, Brett, getting back to you. You've got 30 minutes left. Keep it going.
Sure. So, well, that's the end of my slide deck, but I can sort of get into some other details if you'd like.
Well, absolutely. So what I would really like, we have a lot of Americans that watch the show as well. And I think that Americans need to comprehend how bad the situation is in Canada, first off, and for all the reasons why. It's the Liberal Party of Canada is worse than the Democrats ever were. And unfortunately, it's liberal-minded people like that run all 5 branches of government. And my biggest concern is that Mark Carney now, like you've just said, is going to deliberately try to start killing the banking industry. So by all means, if you could explain that to the American audience, just so they understand how important it is to keep what they have in place. I want to hear it.
Yeah, sure. So just a little bit of anecdote. I do talk to a lot of Eastern Europeans and that have lived under communist rule. And they suggest that the state that Canada is now is way worse than it was in their communist dictatorships that they came from, that they fled from. So that's just interesting anecdote. So now, just to give you a sense of how far Mark Carney will go with his climate agenda of cutting off fossil fuel use and stopping the emission of CO2. There's a bill called B15 up here in Canada, and it's the Climate Risk Mitigation Act. And it's a fairly benign document. It talks about how, greenhouse gas is bad, quit emitting greenhouse gases, shaping up, that type of thing. And it's not a terribly relevant document, with the exception that it ties to another document that's currently in the Senate, and I think it's past its third reading, who Mark Carney spoke in favor of when it was going through the Senate. This is right online at the bank or at Government of Canada. You can look this up yourself. And the bill is called S243. S243 basically ties right into the banking system in Canada. And what it does is it dictates the amount of capital that financial institutions have to hold to give any lending to oil and gas companies. And so on a normal day, you have to have about what's called risk-weighted capital of about 100%. And under his new rules, he's increasing that standard to 1,250%. So that means that banks in Canada will have to hold 1,250% more capital than they previously would than if they were to lend to an oil and gas company. And so let me just put that into actual terms for you. So say you were lending to an oil and gas company at 6, 7, 8% interest per annum. Because of this new requirement and these new laws for capital, it'll require financial institutions to hold much more capital, which is expensive. And so to be sustainable, you'd have to start changing rates up to 35, 40% per annum to give a loan to an oil and gas company. So effectively what it'll do is snuff out all lending in Canada to oil and gas companies. So now that's not the worst part, because most oil and gas companies will be able to find private investors because it can be a lucrative business. So that's no problem. But under this S243 bill that is not yet through the Senate, but I'm sure Carney is on it, it also includes other areas: mining, forestry, manufacturing, and residential housing. So if he increases the capital requirements for residential housing, rather than paying your typical 4, 5, 6% for your residential mortgage that a lot of people have on their homes, you'll start paying 15, 20, 25% on those mortgages if you don't have solar panels on your roof, if you don't have the right insulation in the wall, if you're not geothermal heat. And so effectively, the rhetoric is turned up to 11 with Carney and this carbon nonsense. He is absolutely bonkers about it. And if you don't believe me, he has a book out there called Values that explains this. And effectively, he's going to snuff out as much carbon as he can, and to hell with the Canadian economy if it falls because of it. So,
oh boy, now how's he going to enforce it? I guess that's the question I have.
So now he enforces it through an organization called OSFI, the Office of Superintendent of Financial Institutions, that report to the Canadian Minister of Finance, who's currently Minister LeBlanc. But previous to that, it was Chrystia Freeland was in charge of that portfolio. And so effectively what's happening is the regulators, the commercial banks, and the government are getting closer and closer and closer together and starting to walk in lockstep. And as I mentioned before, they're termed a monopolistic oligopoly in Canada. There's basically 5 major banks, and they control 83% of all assets within Canada. So it's a significant chunk of the assets within Canada that have to follow this regulation. And so effectively, they can make up this rule, say to 83% of the population, you need to follow these rules, I don't care. And what the good thing about us is, as an organization, is we're regulated provincially. So we don't need to follow these rules with S243. We can basically chart our own path. But part of the problem is we don't have enough balance sheet capacity to take another 83% of the population into the credit union system. And that's only if there's definitely credit unions out there that will go right down this garden path and follow this rhetoric right to the end, thinking there's a climate emergency.
All right. So enforcement now. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's just say I was to win the mayorship of any city in the country, and I dictate to everyone, we're going to give you 50% off your property tax for 2 straight years if you get a wood-burning stove installed to lighten up the load on the gas grid. Let's just say. And people started doing it, and the city actually gave out those discounts. Would there be enforcement brought against the city by this Fed group here to stop it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know enough about municipal, provincial, federal taxes. It'd be very hard to enforce at the federal level. Absolutely. So
okay, that's good to hear. It's difficult to enforce at the federal level. But at the federal level, how easy or difficult would it be to enforce against your institution, a provincially chartered credit union?
Well, they can't put enforcement against us as an organization because they're not our regulators. So we're regulated provincially and not federally. So OSFI has no bearing over what we do and can't dictate the rules that we need to follow, which is really important. But the majority of the population fall under OSFI rule and would fall under these standards. So they could come back and say, know what? I'm not giving you a loan on that house. It's got a wood burning fireplace. Forget about it, type thing. They could come in and make up some arbitrary rule like that.
So the trick is, everybody, deal with provincially chartered banks and credit unions. Forget the Fed. My God, that is crazy. It's absolutely insane. And I don't know for those of you out there who've ever decided to heat your house with wood and a good wood burning stove, but it is cheap to do. It's incredibly cheap to do. And it's good for the trees. Remember the Calgary fires a couple of years ago? What did I tell everybody would happen in May when the fires were lit and there was smoke all over the city? I told you every tree would flourish because of the carbon in the air. What happened? Everything bloomed 2 weeks early. Come on. Smoke is good. Right?
I have a wood burning fireplace as well. And the thing is, with this rhetoric, and Mark Carney says he's canceled the carbon tax on residential housing. It's just embedded in other places. It don't fool yourselves. It's just going to be passed down through other mechanisms. So the thing is, I installed a wood burning fireplace because I didn't want to pay carbon tax.
Well, it's a good move. I would install one just because I don't mind going out and cutting wood.
Yeah, that's pretty fun too. Yeah, it smells nice.
Yeah, heat for free. I mean, Alberta's got trees. Canada's got, what, 540 billion plus trees, even after all the forest fires. They grow back fast, everybody. And I mean really, really fast. Yeah. All right. So in our last 15 minutes with you here, is there any particular warning that you think that Canadians and Americans conjointly should pay attention to in reference to finance over the next 4 years?
Well, we're definitely in sort of a real big holding pattern right now, especially with the Trump tariffs or the threat of tariffs coming onto Canada. It's quite a big deal to the Canadians, and really it's because we've painted ourselves in this corner of we effectively only have one market, and that's the United States. So, and Trump understands this. He understands that he has considerable leverage with the Canadians. So unfortunately, just bear with us for our US friends down there. We'll get over this eventually. There has been a lot of rhetoric of elbows up, Team Canada. It's not going to be successful. We don't have the infrastructure in place to get our products and services to other markets. Effectively, the United States is the only market. And, love him or hate him, Trump is a very, very powerful individual, and I think you need to take him very seriously. Not generally literally, but very seriously. I guess the warning would be, we're in some very tumultuous times. It seems that there's a few good ones out there trying to correct a lot of things. My recommendation is just try and get out of the way as best you can. If you have the opportunity, maybe do like Kevin and move down to a different place in the world. If you're bound to Canada or the US, I think financially we're in for a wild ride. Take consideration looking at precious metals, gold and silver, Bitcoin are going to be important for your portfolio financially. So.
I just heard about this elbows up thing yesterday, and it's that ridiculous mayor of Toronto, the overtly communist Olivia Chow, the one who was like 80% naked during the last Pride Day last year, wearing feathers on her head, dancing. You see that? Oh, never mind.
I didn't see that.
She's doing this, and she's dancing like this downtown Toronto, and this apparently means something. I don't even know what elbows up means. What's going on here?
Well, I thought it was a hockey term, but
yeah.
That's just me being a good Canadian boy. It's elbows up. And so anyway, I don't get the reference. So
yeah. So if any Canadian, and look, Canadians, Americans, I'm Canadian born. I'm a Canadian citizen. I don't have pride in that anymore. By the way, I can tell you, I lived in the United States for about 4.5 years, and America is not to be trifled with. America is the pinnacle of civilization. It's just that's where we are. America made it. Now it's been falling down since the Democrats really began ruining the place. But what do you think that you're going to do by not buying American products? Do you think you're going to hurt America in some particular way? We need to trade with the United States of America. We don't need to fight with the United States of America. We're going to lose. It is that simple. Trump is on the war path, everybody. Look what they did to him during his time off. The guy, he's ready for war, even with his own people, the Democrats. Don't think for a second he won't go to war with Canadians. And I mean like an economic war. He's not going to drive tanks into the country. So could we smarten up a little bit here? Oh, and if you really, really, really hate the States, stop watching the NHL and the NFL, Major League Baseball, Netflix, Prime Video, Hulu. Come on. Canadians, all you do is consume American goods. Does it make your life worse or better consuming American goods? My God, we got to do business, people. Canadians don't seem to understand that when you get into business, you got to make money. Get into business to make money. Don't get into business to get your elbows up in the air and spew stupid rhetoric. All right, look.
Yeah. Well, you might as well forget about Apple phones and Twitter and X and Facebook. All American.
Everything's American. I can only think of 2 Canadian social media platforms, and they don't do very well because the market's too small. 41 million people and about 11 million don't speak English. So your platform is destined to fail. That's just how it is. So now let's talk about provincially chartered credit unions in Canada. For our American friends who are looking to invest in Canada, is it worthwhile for them to invest in an institution like yours? And if so, why?
Well, part of the challenge is you can't. You have to be either hold a corporation in Alberta or be a resident of Alberta. And if you're in the United States, I don't propose that you move to Canada anytime soon. There are limitations to what we can do, and with protection that we have with our provincial government, with our regulations, comes at a bit of a cost, is that we have to stay limited to our province with where we do our banking, which is both a blessing and a curse, I would suppose. So, but
they could open a corporation and do business in Alberta and utilize a credit union. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So,
okay. So if our American friends want to open corporations up in Alberta, what's the advantage?
Well, it's probably one of the most favorable tax places in Canada. Less regulations than most of Canada. You get a lot more people like me with generally more common sense in Alberta than you would in the rest of Canada. I suppose there is probably equivalence in the United States, but it's important to take a look around and see what's out there. So,
absolutely. All right. I'm scratching my head here, just thinking about, could Canadians possibly vote for this Carney guy? So maybe you in the banking industry, I want to get your answer only from the perspective of banking, nothing else. Who's better to win this election? Banking only. Go ahead.
Banking only. If I only have 2 choices between Poilievre and Carney?
Well, what's the other choice? It'd be that maniac from the NDP.
Oh, there's Jagmeet Singh,
who just got threatened by the United States. If he ever enters the U.S., they're going to deport him to India to face all of his terror charges out there. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, interesting. I didn't hear that. So there you go.
He's trapped. So do we want Jagmeet Singh in charge? I mean,
no, there is Maxime Bernier too, and silently he's sort of been climbing up the polls and that type of thing. I don't think he has enough steam to make it up to be the top chair. or anything like that, but it is definitely a good alternative. And I'm definitely of the position, whatever candidate has less regulation, less red tape, less government control, that's the one for me. So.
Well, here's hoping that that's Polyev, and here's hoping that he wins, only so that we have a change in some of the attitude of the country. My God. Let's talk about your gold and silver program here. Your credit union, which is essentially a bank, you're dealing in gold and silver now.
Yeah, so we see about 3 years ago, we saw the problems that were going to happen around inflation. So what we started to do is purchase gold and silver, basically hand over fist, because we recognized that inflation was going to get out of control. We've done very well with that. It's up over 40% in a year. We expect that to continue for the foreseeable future until a lot of these countries, especially around the Western world, unwind a lot of their debt. And that unfortunately includes the United States as well. Canada's probably in worse shape because our productivity is continuing to decline. It seems that the United States is going to try and grow itself out of the debt problem, which is a great thing. And I think Trump is on the right path with the constant investments of companies around the world bringing back their manufacturing to the United States is a great thing. And with a bit of envy out of your Canadian brothers and sisters, I think, to that regard for sure. So.
Oh, I'm extremely envious of where America is going to be going in the next 4 years. We need a Trump in Canada, that's for sure. However, that's an unpopular opinion with leftists, and they don't have jobs, so who cares? They're never going to be clients of mine. So we don't concern ourselves with that. Well, I'm glad to hear that there's some banks in Canada that are getting to the gold and silver market. But would you say that the amount of gold and silver that could be purchased could actually support your bank if the Canadian dollar was to start to drop?
Yeah, and we're probably not well enough positioned for that quite yet, but we continue to get closer day after day. And that's why we also support our membership in purchasing gold and silver. So not only with our partner Silver Gold Bull can they purchase gold and silver at a discounted rate through our organization, we also have something very unique in Canada. I'm not sure if they have something in the US, but it's called an e-metals account, where you can basically purchase tokenized physical gold and silver. So it's the best of both worlds of both cryptocurrency and physical gold and silver. And as well as you keep your store of wealth in your gold and silver, and then you can easily transfer it over into payments and live your everyday life and use our existing rail systems that we have as a bank. So if you had 40 ounces of silver, you needed some groceries, you basically easily convert it over to fiat cash, buy those groceries. And you can use your debit card or your credit card to be able to do that. So it's a very unique product, and basically saying to the system, I'm getting out of the way. I think there's problems with the financial system. I think inflation is coming. I'm getting out of the way and storing my wealth in gold and silver.
Well, the tokenization of gold and silver, it interests me very much. And there is another proposal that was brought to me down here in Panama about a month ago, and that was to tokenize ownership of condominiums. I thought that's brilliant. Could you imagine being able to have 10,000 people owning one condo and getting themselves a small dividend each month on the rent or the Airbnb that it makes? Tokenization is the future, everybody. And I suggest all of you start watching videos on what tokenization is. We will eventually start doing training courses on that, but not today.
Well, and it's a great solution, and you can fractionalize that ownership. So maybe you only have $10 to invest. At least you can invest in that condo and maybe you're making 5 cents a month. Who cares? At least you're making something off of it. And that's part of the thing. Most people can't afford a gold coin. In Canada, they're about $4,500. They're about $3,000 US. That's expensive. But with this tokenization format, you can get down to 1/100th of an ounce and actually spend it that way, or save it that way in 1/100th of an ounce. So that works out to be about $40 and hopefully that's a reasonable price that anybody can pay to get some exposure to some gold. So.
Well, it also is a good idea to learn how to invest. That's the other big thing. People don't invest because they don't know how.
Mhm.
And, YouTube, I hate YouTube, everyone, just for the record, but there's a wealth of information there on how to invest, how it all works. I like the idea of investing in tokenization of gold, silver, and property. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the days are gone that we can sort of delegate that responsibility of investing. The world's a pretty tumultuous place, if you will. So we have to get more involved with our kids' education. We have to get more involved with the municipalities, the governments, legal, you name it, and especially finances, because these governments won't take care of you and nobody else will.
Oh, you're absolutely right. They're not going to take care of you at all. I mean, have a look at every municipality going. I've had one of the city councilors in Pickering, Ontario, Lisa Robinson, came on, because the city is going broke. Hand over fist, they're spending money. The city's not making any money. And they've got all the city councilors up against this one woman because they want to have naked men walking in change rooms with little girls. That is what Canadian city leaders are focusing on, not on making money. And that it bothers me that Canadians will say stupid stuff like, well, the Americans are all about making money. All they care about is money. But you just don't, why is that bad? That's the question I've got. Why is making money bad? Since I got to Panama, I've made over $1 million. I think it's great. My life rocks here. I can tell you this, everybody. In Canada, I was broke. In Panama, I'm wealthy. And being wealthy is awesome. What's your take on being wealthy, Brett? Let's hear your take.
Well, it definitely opens out a lot of doors. And you're absolutely right. In Banff, which is one of the communities that we're in, they're talking about making basically see-through change rooms for kids changing for hockey. How can that be beneficial to society, of making effectively clear change rooms? It doesn't make any sense. And frankly, it in my mind, it almost would be a good thing if we got into some hard times in Canada, because the thing is, as long as we're spending money on ridiculous things like see-through change rooms, what's the point? We need to rethink our lives around this. And the best medium to be able to rethink your lives is around capitalism and money, like you say. So.
Oh, yeah. Capitalism is an amazing thing. Look, I paid cash for my condo down here. I'm in a part of the city where my grocery bill is between 30 and 35 bucks a week. There's a couple of restaurants I go to where I can have breakfast for $4. I'm not spending anything that I'm making. I'm investing it. And it is a very handy thing to know that on a moment's notice, if any issue comes up whatsoever, I got the cash to take care of it. It's very stressful to be broke, and it's very amazing. It's awesome. It is wonderful to have the wealth to solve financial problems, because I think the most of the problems that we all have in the Western world, they're all money-based. It's not common that you wake up and you're missing an arm, but it is common that you wake up and you're broke. So let's focus. Let's change how we think, everybody. Let's worry about making money and forget everything else. You got to go, but what's your final comment in your last 2 minutes here, Brett?
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Come check us out, bowvalleycu.com. We've got some really unique products, and we're a really unique financial institution just because, right what I talked about at the beginning, we're here to provide a financial service to our members. We're not here to give you a lecture. You can have any opinion you want. We're not going to debank you for anything that you have an opinion on.
Wonderful. And Brett, I'm hoping to have you back, because this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
We'll talk soon. Take care.
Bye.
Brett Oland, CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union. What a guy. This guy is a wealth of knowledge. We're definitely going to have him back to cover a whole lot more topics that other banks and bank staff are simply not going to cover. All of you know that I do taxes full time. It's a 14 to 18-hour day for me doing taxes for Canadians. And I can tell you, banks do not answer questions. You cannot even get a manager to talk to you anymore whenever they decide to screw with your account in some particular way. When I'm here in Panama, there are 53 major banks and 3 credit unions. You can walk into any of them and ask to talk to the manager, and guess what happens? You're talking to the manager. They'll bring you into their office. They'll get you coffee, cappuccino. Every bank's got a cappuccino machine down here in Panama. That's how banking should be. Banking is a business, and the only way to do business and make money is to serve the hell out of your customers. Keep them happy. But in Canada, we do the exact opposite. First thing that the banks of Canada do is they hire people that don't speak English. Like, they go out of their way, it seems, to hire people that don't speak English. In Canada, there are 2 official languages, English and French. Now, the vast majority spoke English in the 70s and 80s. Small percentage spoke French. But if you're going to be working in a Quebec bank, you should be speaking French. Possibly English as well, but certainly not Farsi or Punjabi or Mandarin or otherwise. We need to be able to communicate inside of our own financial institutions, and the banks of Canada have chosen to go the exact opposite way. So what I can say here is that Bow Valley Credit Union, the gentleman we just spoke to, everybody speaks English and everybody's polite. Man, you'd be amazed at how rare it is to have anybody working in banking in Canada who has good manners. Like, manners are just out the door. And I am entirely sick of it. So a lot of you have been asking me lately, what happens when the Canada Revenue Agency wants to get your money and they send a letter to your bank, a requirement to pay letter to your bank? Well, we just found out today that the exact method is they send a fax. Yeah, they don't even send it registered mail, and they don't send it by courier. They send a fax. Why? Because the fax is free. The Canada Revenue Agency, they are so broke and they are so cheap that they won't even put a stamp on a letter. They send faxes. So banks in Canada, especially the federal banks, BMO, Toronto Dominion Bank, and all those places, they capitulate immediately because they don't want the CRA to audit them and find out how many people are doing money laundering through their banks. That's what it is. Every federal Canadian bank is making a ton of money off of drugs, human trafficking, fentanyl, guns, terrorism, but they don't want the CRA getting in there and sniffing around. All right. But the CRA can be gotten rid of just by telling them that you're banned. Don't come back. Let me give you an example. This here is not a good person. Ramisa Kabir. This is an auditor, not for the Canada Revenue Agency, but the same rules apply. This is for the province of Saskatchewan. She is pestering a client of mine, making demands without court orders, I might add, stating that she is coming. I am coming to your property. You will give me whatever I want. That's what she's talking. Yeah, she's saying, I'm coming to your house. You're going to spend time with me that you're not getting paid for, and you're going to give me all of your records so that I can write you some kind of invoice for money that you don't even owe. There we go. That's what this person is doing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play the conversation that I had. Whenever you hear a beep, it is me beeping out my client's name, because that's none of your business. But what is your business is what I tell this individual. And I want you to pay attention to what she says about her right to do whatever she wants. So here we go. Kabir. Okay, that I know who you are. Thank you very much for that. All right. Do you have an employee number or a badge number?
Sorry?
Do you have an employee number or a badge number?
Is that necessary to give? Sorry?
Well, yes. I mean, you're required to identify yourself because you're a government employee and you're asking for entrance to someone's property. So if you don't mind, I would like to just check that out, check the validity of the claim. Would that be okay?
You can actually go to the Saskatchewan directory website for all employees, and you can type in my name and it will show up. And once I go for an on-site audit, I can take my government ID with me.
Okay, well, that's why I'm calling. Not only am I the legal agent for the Connerys and their corporation, but I'm also their tax guy. And I'm letting you know now that we are redoing the taxes because they were done incorrectly by an incredibly incompetent accountant. So we're going to be declining your audit at this time.
Okay. When something is chosen for audit, you can't really decline an audit.
Is that right?
Because those are randomly chosen audits for PST. It's not up to the client to decline the audit.
Actually, it is.
However, if you need more time...
No, it is. Okay, look. I know that you don't get the right training to understand the law. You're going to sit there and tell me that the province has the right to do whatever it wants because it has some kind of designation of provincial sales tax office. I'm telling you that you don't. I'm asking you nicely, please accept the fact that we are going to go ahead. We are not going to allow the audit to take place because the taxes are being redone and the numbers are going to be different than what you have currently. I'm letting you know also that if you do show up at my client's place of business or residence, they are going to be calling 911 and letting them know that there is an intruder on the property. You are hereby banned from my client's property, and you're also, because I am their legal agent, banned from contacting them. Would you like my address? You can send me any and all correspondence there.
I will accelerate this message to my supervisor and get back to you if that's okay.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
But the other thing is, unless I get a business consent form from Kim, I will have to contact her directly. I'm not permitted to be contacting you.
Well, if you think that the law is going to allow you to completely disavow what I've told you, you need to understand that she will be within her rights to call the police and file criminal harassment charges against you. It doesn't matter what your internal policies are. You have to abide by criminal law just like the rest of us. So if you are to contact my client, you're actually committing a crime. It's an unconstitutional act. My client has been instructed to call the police, file a report, and if the police will not charge you, I've instructed her to go to the nearest courthouse and lay a private information, which is a criminal charge. So have your supervisor contact me. Let's not have you making any mistakes in criminal law because you feel that you have the right to do so. I'm informing you that you don't. Go ahead.
Okay, I will accelerate this matter and you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, so she didn't want to talk any further, but these people are, they're mentally ill. They think that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. She told me that we can't decline an audit. Are you kidding me? Who the hell are you? Who are you to state that you are going to come to my house and you are going to walk inside my house and look at my paperwork? You, I'm telling you now, are not stepping 1 foot on my property. I will defend my property against you. Auditors are not police. Auditors are not detectives. Auditors have no rights that are special outside the rights of you and me. And when someone says you're banned from my property, you're freaking banned from the property. You don't go. A policy does not pertain to anybody who does not work for that particular institution. Do you all remember during COVID when I went to the Credit Valley Hospital in Mississauga and I was filming people, adults, like adult males, driving their cars into the underground parking garage and sticking their heads out a window like this and getting some 20-year-old girl they didn't know shoving a stick up their nose. And I'm filming this and I'm asking them, why are you doing this? Why are you letting someone stick something up into your brain cavity? You don't even know this person. I don't see a condom on that thing. Oh my God. So they sent the security guards over to ask me to leave. And I said, no, I'm not leaving because hospitals in Canada are publicly funded. So if they're publicly funded, they are public land. Then the guy breaks out this piece of paper. I'm sure all of you remember that video saying it's our policy that you can't film on our garage, or in our garage and on our parking lot. I said, well, I don't work for the hospital. I do not work for you. I don't work for the province of Ontario. I don't work for anyone you're associated with. I am a taxpayer. Hospitals are public property. I'm going to go ahead and keep filming. Thank you. And they couldn't do a thing about it. And when they called the cops said the same thing. He's not doing anything illegal. He can stay here and film. Well, think about that. The policy of this woman, it's the woman's company, which is the province of Saskatchewan. The policy is to randomly pick a piece of paper out of the mail, I suppose, and then make a threatening phone call, I suppose, and then intimidate the person, I suppose, into doing what you want, and then trespassing on their land, and then essentially breaking and entering, stating to the person that they've got the right to be there when the people behind the door don't want them there, and have the right to say no, but actually don't know what their rights are. So you just heard me shoot this person down in flames. You all have the right to tell anybody that you want to leave your property. That includes armed police officers. Gentlemen, I have nothing to say to you. Please leave. Now, these people, sometimes Canada Revenue Agency and these provincial sales tax people will come to your door and they'll say, we have a warrant to inspect your property. No, they don't. That will not be a warrant signed by a judge. I have never come across any representative of the Canada Revenue Agency or any provincial tax office in Canada who actually had a warrant. They have letters from their boss. And a warrant must be signed by a judge. You know, the ones that wear the black dress and the sash, a red sash in Canada, to be a judge, not the green one, which is the justice of the peace, who don't know anything about law, I might add. So you all have to stand up for yourselves. All of you need to comprehend that you have the right to phone these auditors and tell them, don't come to my house. We are not cooperating with you. I will not be complying with the demands of some loser who works for an agency that my taxes already pay for. You get enough from me. I'm not giving you my time for free. I had a conversation with an auditor. His name is Mark McDonald. He's probably watching the show right now. This is someone who I've had 46 conversations with, and he's trying to get to me. It's not going to work. He has nothing to threaten me with. But he has made it very clear that even he doesn't have any capacity to sue me whatsoever. He wants me. I bought a corporation that was in British Columbia. I got some pretty cool toys with the corporation, but I got 12 boxes of taxes. I'm telling you all right now, I'm not opening that box up at all. I don't care about the tax load that corporation has. I'll open the boxes when I am damn good and ready, because it's my time. This guy wants me to open these boxes up, review all the taxes, and submit taxes. And then he wants me to answer questions about transactions that took place in the corporate bank account. I don't even have the bank records. I haven't seen them. If I do have them, they're in one of the boxes. Am I going to read those things? Well, no. What I asked this auditor guy, Mark McDonald, who's watching now, I asked him, will you be compensating me for my time? Will you be paying me for my time to open these boxes so that I can review this nonsense and write everything down on these stupid sheets of paper with your logo on them and submit them to you? He goes, well, of course you're not going to get paid. That's a stupid question. Well, it's a stupid request of you to tell me that I have to spend my time and pay my staff to review boxes of paperwork that I am just not interested in opening. Don't care. So I said to him, why don't you sue me? He asked a great question. Well, what would I sue you for? I said, I don't know. Make something up, Mark. Breach of contract? I'm grasping at straws here. But why doesn't the CRA sue me if I'm telling you in this conversation I'm not complying? What do you have to threaten me with if I don't comply? Still haven't got an answer on that one. So, everyone, the individuals who work for the Canada Revenue Agency are nothing. They are nobodies. You heard the conversation with that little girl there, whatever her name is. She is trash. Anybody who wants to collect taxes on behalf of Canada against the Canadian people who are just suffering beyond reproach right now is a scumbag. They're dirt. They're filth. They're toys for me to play with. I now have hundreds of conversations with individual CRA representatives and these provincial sales tax people. And the only reason I haven't released them is because I just don't have time to edit the footage. I don't have time to make videos. If anybody out there wants to cut video, let me know. Just please let me know. And if anybody out there is a professional private investigator, we've got 2 working for us right now. We need more. We have more CRA staff to track down. We have more homes belonging to CRA staff that we want to put liens on. So if you want to make some dough, there's money in this business. I got money for you. All right. I want you guys to track these individual people down so that we can make more money by putting liens on their properties and forcing the sale of their homes and putting these CRA representatives out in the street where they belong, their entire family. So that way their kids know your parent was a loser working for the CRA, and now you're reaping the, I guess we'll call it, benefit of being on the street. Don't follow in your parents' footsteps. Don't steal money from good people. All right. Overtaxed Canadian says you'll do it. All right. If you're a private investigator, if you've got investigative skills, if you've got licenses to reach into the government files there, let me know. We got 2, but they're already swamped. They're swamped right now. So, guys, get a hold of me. Let's enjoy the fight. Because let me tell you about Canadian losers who work for government. They're all cowards. They are all afraid of everything. They know what they're doing is wrong. Now, I have a friend of mine who used to work for the CRA. He had indicated to me that I should maybe lay off a little bit. I'm being too harsh against the people who work for the Canada Revenue Agency. You know, they're just people. They're just doing a job. Stalin's soldiers were just doing a job when they were shooting Russians in the head. Pol Pot's soldiers were just doing their job when they were skinning their own people alive. Don't sit there and tell me that because you're doing your job, you get some kind of free pass. There's nothing moral and ethical about what they do at all. And when you have immoral, unethical people, malignant, psychotic individuals who are trying to harm good people just trying to get by, now we got to fight back. We got to fight back. We have to turn these CRA representatives into toys for our own amusement. And then go to war with them on a personal scale. Because I can tell you this right now, if we start filing criminal charges against each and every one of them, the Department of Justice is not going to be representing them personally. The Department of Justice will only be representing the CRA, the corporation, but not the individual people. We can bankrupt CRA representatives if 1,000 of us all hit them with 1,000 criminal charges. They are bankrupt in no time. And then they're going to be crying, and the media is going to say, oh, poor CRA representative. They got charged 1,000 times by the army of Kevin J. Johnston. That's a good thing, is it not? So come on, everyone. Let's stop sitting on the couch. Let's go to war with these people. They're at war with us, and they're lying to us all the time, saying that they've got the right to do these things. You just heard the conversation. They don't have the right to do these things, but we do. We're not bound by CRA policy. We're not bound by the Income Tax Act or the GST Act. We are all simply bound by criminal law. And when they're committing crimes like intimidation, extortion, criminal harassment, what else? We got fraud, theft, sometimes forging documents. That's a lot of crimes, man. We can put a lot of these people in prison if we all get together and start doing it. All right. Mr. Johnston, how many of those CRA auditors are outsourced and live in Pakistan? We don't actually know how many are outsourced and actually living in Pakistan right now. But what we do have is knowledge that the Winnipeg office is over 70% Indian and Pakistani. So we know that. You don't believe me? If you live in Winnipeg, go stake it out for yourself. Just sit there all day and film. You'll be surprised. There's no native people working there at all. Oh, hey, look at that. Thanks for the cowboy hat. Appreciate that. All righty. Just checking out your questions here, everybody. All right. So yes, I am serious. We are looking to hire more private investigators. I said we got 2. We need more. And one more thing. This is the other thing. I put an ad. We're looking to hire just one more accountant, somebody who's got balls and will take direction well. I've conducted now at least 12 interviews. No, I'm sorry. It's more. It's almost 15 interviews in the last 6 weeks alone. And every time I start talking about the CRA, I call them. They're trash. They're human refuse. It's third world garbage, dictating terms to Canadians how we're going to live our lives. You know what these people say? Oh, you're racist. I can't work for you. Yeah. Nobody wants to make money. Why do you care about the commentary that I make? If you're an accountant and you want to make money, why do you care about the feelings of people that you don't know? It's bizarre. Canadians have got to get tougher, man. Capitalism is good. Start making money. Forget feelings. Forget everybody else. But it's bizarre that I simply cannot find anybody out there who's brave enough to work for a guy, thank you for the sunglasses, who's brave enough to tell the truth about what the country really is and what the CRA really is. It's strange. If you don't want to make money, don't contact me. I want to make money. I really do. So Dr. Dre in the Big R, I filled your online form out today. Hopefully you can reach out. Dr. Dre, what was it about? Let me know. I'm really curious about that. Alrighty, I'm just going to address a couple of questions here from the other chat rooms. Hello, Kevin. How can I get in touch with you? On my personal website, kevinjjohnston.com. The brand new website is up and running currently, so there'll be no problem getting a hold of me there. Definitely my website, everybody. I don't have time to read social media messages. I just don't. So I don't check private messages anymore on Instagram, on Telegram, on Kick, on TikTok. I don't have the hours in the day. I really don't. So let me know if you want to talk on my personal website right here, kevinjjohnston.com. It's in my bio up here somewhere. Do get a hold of me in these places. It's the best, actually in that only place. It's the best thing to do. All right, looking at a few more questions here. Steve is asking if we have a list of credit unions in Ontario. We do. It's on my old website. It's still there, the kevinjjohnston.me website. You'll find it there. That website's going to be coming down soon, folks, because it sucks. My new one is awesome. Hey, look at that. I got the Elvis dude. Look at that. Woo. Thank you. These TikTok gifts are great, people. Keep saying them. God bless you for doing so. By the way, we're at 48,000 likes. Can we get to 60,000 tonight? Is that possible? Boom, 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 boom. Get 2 fingers going. Same thing over here on Kick and on Instagram. Just get the double fingers going. The likes, the hearts, it really does help the algorithm find us and bringing news like this to Canadians who need to know this stuff, because you really, really do. I'm just going to check your questions here, everybody. All right, so having a look here. Yeah, Steve, I'll be keeping my elbows down. Yeah, I want to reflect on that just one more time, everybody. This anti-American sentiment that the Canada Broadcasting Corporation and CTV and Canadian politicians want you to have along with them is not going to make your life any better. We all have to start doing things in this really bizarre economy. We all need to do things that make our lives better, not worse. So if you're going to go along with what any of the news agencies say and do this elbows up thing, how is that going to make you money? Investing will make you money. getting a really, really, really good business plan put together, and probably in the United States, that'll make you money. Learning the crypto, the gold and the silver, and the commodities market, learning the Forex, these things will make you money. Learning more about money will make you money. Turning off Netflix will make you, well, it'll help you make money. Turning off video games, and for the young men out there, don't chase chicks. All right. That's not going to make you money either. What you young guys have got to do is learn everything that Brett Oland spoke about tonight and everything I'm speaking about all the time. Learn this stuff, figure out what currency is, understand the markets, work on you. Young men out there have got to be in the gym, right? Get to the gym, work out, put some muscle tone on. You'll feel better about yourself. Your mind will be more free and clear because there's higher blood flow there. Educate yourself as much as you can. Let the ladies chase you. So young men out there, just focus on success. You need to focus on success. Think about this. Your lifespan would be about 85 years, roughly, for most people. I'm 53. And I remember my first day of junior kindergarten at age 4, like it was yesterday. I remember the first time my mother let me go out trick-or-treating by myself. I was 7 years old. What a thrill that was. Like the excitement, the giddiness. I remember these things. I'm thinking, my God, I am well past the halfway mark of my lifespan. Am I going to waste my time doing stupid stuff like following what the trends are? Or am I going to set my own trends and make money? So I'm asking all of you now to start thinking along these lines. Let's make money. Now, one more thing is, in Canada, I have been teaching Canadians how to legally, not this free man on the land crap, but legally no longer pay tax in Canada. And within 4 months of my clients learning how to do this, they start getting wealthier. They're able to pay their bills. They can pay their mortgage. They're actually able to save money. So yes, I will be putting together courses for this, and I'll be making some big announcement when the courses are going to begin to teach everybody this on a more private, more intimate level. Because when you are not paying tax in Canada, you actually can make money. It is possible to be wealthy in Canada, but you cannot pay income tax anymore. You cannot pay corporate income tax anymore. You simply can just not, if you stop paying all these things, you will get wealthy quickly. And this is what I've always wanted for Canadians in general, because I do remember a time when Canada was wealthy. When I was 18 years of age, I made $16.50 an hour cutting vegetables at a grocery store. I made an additional $25 an hour driving a forklift. And when I was DJing, I was making almost $400 to $1,000 a night between the salary and the tips. I made good money. From 18 to 21, I made very, very good money. And that's just back in a day when movies were $3 or $4 and a whole case of Coca-Cola was $2.99 and an entree at a restaurant was $5. So I could work an hour. Actually, I could work 23 minutes roughly and make enough money for an entree and one alcoholic beverage in a restaurant. Think about that. Oh, Steve was asking, you were a bouncer. No. Although I'm a good fighter, to be a bouncer, you cannot be 5'6". All right. Nobody takes a 5'6" bouncer seriously. Everybody assumes you know a martial art, but when they get a couple of drinks in them, no one takes that kind of a guy seriously. Now, bouncers need to be over 6 feet tall just for the look. No. So I bounced one night, and only as a favor to a friend of mine. He paid me well for it. And my job that night was to watch the back door, to open the back door for the waitresses to take garbage out to the bin and then close the door as soon as they come back in. That's it. No, bouncers, that's a terrible job. DJ. I was a DJ for years. Yeah, it does, Joseph, it doesn't matter if you know how to fight. Why do I want to have a job where I might have to fight somebody? Because then the assault charges started, then the medical bills rang. God, no. Fighting is stupid. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to fight someone for $150 a night, break my knuckles possibly kill someone and do prison time for manslaughter. 6 years? I don't want to go to jail for 6 years. So I don't take jobs where I have to fist fight. Not interested. You don't make money when your knuckles are broken and your jaw's broken and you got black eyes and whatnot, and you're in the hospital. You're not making money. And if you're hiring lawyers to defend you because some guy has charged you with it, you don't make money. That's why jobs like that, guys, they're not good. They don't go anywhere. If you're a Canadian day trader, where's the best place to move your taxes? Hire me as your tax guy. You'll never pay him because we will run your day trading out of numbered corporations in multiple provinces where you're moving your money back and forth between the provinces and moving your money to the States. That's how we do it. Now, if you're a day trader, do it all through a corporation. The corporation does the trading, or at least the corporation does the collecting of the fees. You do the trading, obviously, but you're not going to have a salary. Why would you have a salary if you have a corporation? It doesn't make sense at all. All right. Where would I recommend purchasing crypto? Crypto.com is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I have a lot of fun on crypto.com. I mean, I hold my crypto on a hard wallet, but when it comes to trading anything in crypto, crypto.com is the coolest of the platforms. It's the easiest one to learn, and it's got the most toys and the most function. So that's the one I go to. I have no problem recommending crypto.com. In fact, I've got Christine, can you find my crypto.com code and throw it in the chat room, please? I do have a referral code. It's on my, I know. Thank you. Thank you very much. Christine's the best. She'll get things done for us. All right. Yeah. So folks, when you file taxes with me and you're doing day trading or crypto trading, or if you're doing gold and silver commodities trading, we're not going to have you paying income on that stuff. Why? That stuff's not even regulated by the Canadian government in any particular capacity where you would have to even report it. Isn't that crazy? You can make a ton of money on things that are so non-regulated that the CRA could never possibly legally even tax you on them. Yeah, so you don't tell the CRA anything. Canada has a voluntary tax reporting system, which means what? Voluntary. That was the key word in that sentence. So you can voluntarily snitch on yourself and tell the CRA how much you make, or you can voluntarily give them the proverbial middle finger through me and not report. It's not illegal to not report. You know, they want you to fill out a tax return. So let's put some numbers on there, right? And send it in. Who cares what they think? And if they decide that they don't like the numbers, they're going to assess you at a different value, and we're going to appeal it. And we're going to force them to prove their assessment, which they cannot do. So we'll crush them in court. We'll absolutely crush them there. Darren says, I've got a meeting with you Monday. Can't wait. I'll be there. Looking forward to it. Nettie, if you haven't reported any of those earnings, don't worry about it. You just heard you heard the conversation earlier. That woman that was wanting to do an audit. That's the level of intelligence you're dealing with. Excessively low IQs. The CRA does not hire geniuses. They hire idiots. There's 30,000 idiots at least working for the CRA. They're just not smart enough to have any particular mindset to defeat what we are doing. Christine, it's on the contact page of kevinjjohnston.me. There is a crypto.com referral code. So if we give that out, I get $20 in Kronos. I'll take it. I like Kronos. That coin's a lot of fun. All right. I'm just approving some of the comments here. Do I have fake teeth? No. I've been brushing 5 times a day since I was a kid, because if I didn't brush my teeth 5 times a day, I got the strap. That's how that worked. Nope. Quite natural. There we are. But thank you for asking. Why do crypto companies want Canadians to register with their SIN numbers? That's the Canadian crypto companies like BitBuy, Coinbase, Coinberry's gone now. Who else? ShakePay, WonderFi, all those. I don't bother with those guys anymore. I really don't. What's this whole thing about capital gains in your homes? If I'm your tax guy, there's no capital gain in your home. Most accountants are cowards. They just report everything. It's not the CRA's business what you own at all. You don't have to report to the CRA when you sell your baseball cards or your hockey cards or your car. So why do you have to report your house? Oh, wait, you don't. But I am the only one out there that tells you the truth that you don't. So if you don't want to pay capital gains, get a hold of me. There's no capital gain. It really is that simple. Can you file my tax both USA and Canada? I own a rental in the USA. If you own property in the United States of America, if you own property anywhere, even in Canada, why do you want to tell people what you own? Shut up about your stuff. You've got the right to remain silent. Please exercise that right. Don't tell people anything. Don't be someone that likes to brag. Hey, guys, look at my new car. Why would you brag about that? You know, whenever I bought my new car, I didn't tell anyone I bought it. People would ask, new car? Yeah, that's it. Nonchalant. You got to be nonchalant about it, because when you brag about it, people think that you have more than them. Money-wise, house-wise, better wife, better husband, better whatever. They get jealous. What do? They key your stuff. They start looking for ways to sabotage you. Don't brag about what you have. Shh. About everything. Having a quick look here. Mike says, Unloaded could be my tax guy as soon as I know where your services are. Please and thanks. Everyone who knows my website address, kevinjjohnston.com. Please go ahead and put that into the chat room, because I can't type on the phone while I'm live. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yes, Reza, that's true. I think I'm booked up until June. But what we do is from time to time, when I'm able to get some cancellations, you got to keep checking my site for them. But my cancellations will be like a surprise. So we had a cancellation last night at 10 p.m. So the cancellation was announced on my website, and it got bought in 5 minutes. So there will be cancellations. There will be times. Just keep checking the site, please. Certainly appreciate that. I sold my acreage after separating. Should I have told them when I did my taxes? No. There's no advantage to telling the CRA about separation, divorce, or marriage. None. There is the only time is if you're going to state that you are a single mother and you would like to take advantage of any of the tax benefits to do with your children. It's always better to be a single mom on paper only. Not in real life, folks. Now, keep your marriages together, but just lie. Lie. It's none of their business that you're married at all. So no, you should never tell them anything. So Reza, there are emergency meetings that we have that are like 15 minutes in length. But you'd have to contact me through the website to find out when those next dates are. Please do everything through my website. Don't contact me by private messaging on any social media. I cannot get to it. I'm out of time. You got to do it on my website, kevinjjohnston.com. All right. So we're down to about 20 minutes here, folks. I started 5 minutes early, so I have to end the show 5 minutes early tonight. Any more questions that you have, go ahead and throw them in the room. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Kevin J. Johnston, Canada's biggest mouth, and also Canada's #1 income tax and corporate tax expert. I'm the only one that the Canada Revenue Agency is afraid of. They do not like me, and that is okay, because it's mutual, everyone. I've studied tax law for 40 years because I absolutely despise the Canada Revenue Agency. I hate everything about them. There's nothing about the Canadian government that I like. Not any branch of the government do I like. And as a result of me being very public about that, the Canadian government has punished me greatly with a great deal of harassment. And that's all right too. They tried to get the smile off my face and get me to stop talking. Didn't work, obviously. I'm still talking. And now that I'm no longer in Canada, living in Panama, I'm making money hand over fist, because you can make money in a free market economy when the government is not breathing down your neck, stealing your stuff, which is what the Canadian government did. Does Panama tax you at their bank? If you are a tax resident of Panama, any money that you make from outside of Panama, online earnings, for example, is not taxed. It's the same in Paraguay. There's a couple other countries around the world that are like that. So no, I don't get taxed here, because 99% of what I make is not from inside of Panama, but I am changing that. I'm in a negotiation right now for something really cool that we're going to be announcing in June. And I think you're going to like it. I have about 20K of debt in HST and 4 years behind filing personal and corporate. Yes. The more years you're behind in your taxes, the bigger a refund I can get for you. Yeah. So don't be afraid of being behind in tax. We'll go back 10, 15, 20 years if we have to, because we can. I've been told by accountants, you can only go back 3. What kind of a moron thinks that? So you got to, when you're talking to accountants, everyone, ask questions. Can the CRA take your license away if you do something wrong? If they say yes, they're a retard. They're a moron. Idiot. Get rid of them. Will you cooperate with an audit if an auditor contacts you or me? And if they say, well, yes, you have to, it's the government. That's an idiot. They work for the CRA, not you. Walk away. If you're like, just ask all kinds of accounting questions. Things you've heard on my show. Do we have the right to ban an auditor from our property or from even contacting us? If they say, no, you can't do that, that's a coward and an idiot. You can't work with people like that. They will screw you over left, right, and center. Sinister Shine Shop. My name, Kevin, middle initial J, last name JOHNSTON.com. KevinJJohnston.com. Okay. Anybody who knows my website, could you please put it in the chat here too and up here? Oh, everyone, put it in the chat so everybody there can see it. Don't you still have to pay Canadian tax even if you don't live here? No. Why would I do that? I'm going to make money in Panama and phone the Canadian government saying, hi, my name's Kevin. I make money in Panama. I want to give you money. I want to give you some. You don't deserve it, but I want to give it to you. What? Could you picture me doing that? Why would you do that? Do I have to? No, I don't have to do anything. And I'm not going to do anything that I don't want to do or that I'm not being paid for. It is that simple. Can you do that in Australia? Well, Australia works on the same premise as the United Kingdom, Great Britain, whatever. I mean, it is a Commonwealth country, and the laws are pretty much universally connected to their origins from 600 years ago in England. But apparently the ATO, the Australian Tax Office, is insane, like the IRS. I haven't studied Australian law to be able to answer that question. I'm actually kind of focused a little bit on upping my knowledge on American corporate law because there's a lot of money in that. I don't know. And I'm sorry, I really don't know. I wish I did, but it's worth looking into because the things that I do to get tax money back for Canadians could possibly work in all the Commonwealth countries, except India, because their tax rules are just bizarre. Do I need do I need a consult to have you file my past 3 years? Single mom, basic taxes, have CERB debt. Well, Heather, the consultation helps me understand what the problem is. But if you're prepared just to become a client right off the hop, then no, you don't have to pay the consultation fee. Some people do skip the consultation fee altogether and go straight to the service. So you could contact me on my website. There's a contact button there. Use the form and let me know that I told you that on TikTok. I'll remember who you are, and we can just get you into your tax bill or your taxes, right away. Believe me, I'm sympathetic to the single mother issues out there and the senior citizen issues and veterans. You know, I'm sympathetic to it. We work with everybody. Okay. Send the CRA a letter of resolution. They will not accept. Yeah, guys, these letters that the CRA say that you can send in where you're begging for forgiveness and whatnot, they don't care. They don't care. They're not human beings. Don't justify yourself to these people. Never take a defensive posture with these people, ever. Always go on the attack. They're saying, well, I'm blah, blah, blah from the CRA. First thing out of your mouth. What the hell do you want? First thing out of your mouth. What's your name? Spell it. What's your badge number? Why are you calling me? You better have some evidence to back up that claim. You got to get mad. You've got to be a monster on the phone. But a lot of you don't. You take the defensive stand. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. As soon as you do that, your sucker index goes up. It's a number from 000 to 999. And the higher that number is, the more they're going to call you to demand more money from you, and the more you're going to capitulate. So get mean, get nasty, get racist if you have to. Get whatever you need to do to get them to understand that you're not messing around. You got to bring your sucker index down. Now, don't hang up on them until you get their information. And then what you can do is hire me as your legal agent, and I can get rid of them on a permanent basis for you. So user 251, can I reply to which question? Sorry. I owe CRA this year. They also put a penalty on my RSP. All right, everyone, RSPs. Scam, scam, scam. Those things are a scam. They started this stuff when I was a teen. Actually, I think I was in grade school when the RSP came out. Man, that's like 80s, early 80s. And they said that you can put money into it and you get a bit of a tax break. Not really. Then they say that you can cash them out and all that money you've saved has earned interest. Yeah, but they take 38% of it. So what's the point of earning interest if you're just going to give it away? You earn 6 and they take 12? Come on. No way. But you know me, I was always looking for a way to get RRSP taxes back for everybody, and I found one. So if you are going to be cashing out RRSPs, you got to do it my way. There's only one way to get all your tax money back on those RRSPs. And I can tell you this, no accountant in Canada is brave enough to do it. So don't cash out your RSPs until you are a client of mine. I promise you 100% back, 100% back in the following tax year. It's not that difficult to do. You just have to have the balls to do it. What about disabilities? Well, I mean, we have every walk of life, folks. I don't know what a disability is to you or to anybody else, but we have people in wheelchairs. We have old people. We have single moms. We've got Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus. Everybody comes to us. So don't think for a second that being a disabled individual is going to preclude you from being able to hire me. I'm in this for the money, folks. I love money. I love making money. But at the same time, I am doing God's work here in that I'm taking money away from the CRA who are giving it to warlords around the world anyway. So not only am I saving you money, but I'm saving lives all over the world. I know I've been to these war zones where the Canadian government is buying bullets, guns, swords, and knives, and they're being used to slaughter the innocent. So I'm saving lives. Every time I help one of you get your tax dollars back, I'm saving some of them. And I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that. Yeah, the CRA is ruthless, but they're also cowards. As soon as you fight back, they do back down. Okay. I stopped filing taxes in 2017. Can that be fixed? Yeah, of course it can. I can have you at a loss for all those years and get you back all kinds of child tax credits and your carbon credits and your GST credits. That's what I do. Kevin, do you do Quebec? Yes, Roderick, we do Quebec. Now, Quebec's a bit of a strange case. I made a short video about it a month ago. A lot of folks in Quebec are making the biggest mistake of their lives. It's okay to live in Quebec, but it's not okay to have a Quebec corporation. If you're doing business in Quebec, you have to have a corporation registered in Ontario and conduct all your business out of the Ontario corporation. And if Quebec doesn't like it, too bad for them. Quebec works on civic law and not common law like the rest of the country does. So they do what they want. But if you have the corporation outside of Quebec, you're going to make some money, guys. You're going to make some money because Ontario is such a disorganized place that they wouldn't know what you're doing anyway, right? So yes, we do help people in Quebec. In 2019, I opened a corporation. I was not aware I had to pay CPP. Okay, if you have a corporation and you owe CPP and EI and source deductions, you get a hold of me. I'll buy that company from you and take all that debt away, and we'll start you over at a brand new company. I buy everyone's debt. If you have a corporation that has HST debt, income tax debt, CEBA loan debt, bank loan debt, payroll debt, I buy it. This is what I do. I am a debt broker. I am very good at buying debt, being in debt, and selling debt. I'm like $50 million in the hole. So if you're suing me, you're an idiot because you're never going to get paid. But I am deliberately $50 million in the hole because I know how to leverage debt to make a lot of money. It's something that I'll be teaching people after I've had my fun and made my money because I invented this system. And I'm thoroughly enjoying myself, by the way. Is it true our birth certificate is tied to a bond that the government started years ago? Yes and no. You're never going to be able to cash it in. So who cares if it is? There's no way to cash those things in. Can you review 10 years of taxes and show where they ripped me off? We go back 10, 15 years in some cases. Oh, yeah. The answer is yes. Someone says, am I wanted in Saskatchewan on abuse charges? I've been to Saskatchewan twice in my entire life. Once for 6 hours and once for 15 minutes. Yeah, I was in Lloydminster and right back out. So, no, that ain't me. How do I manage so many clients? I've got a good team. I've got a great team. My team is amazing. I'm lucky that way. I'm an extremely fortunate man that way. Yeah, there's a lot of fake accounts of me out there, folks. Please pay attention to that. Just so everyone knows, I will not ever in this lifetime ask you for money in a pre-recorded video. It'll be we're on the phone together or we're having a chit chat in the chat room together or on WhatsApp or anywhere else for that matter. Don't give money to anybody that asks for it if you have not spoken to me, asked me questions, and I've answered that specific question in real time. Right? Don't give anybody money in relation to me and my services unless we are talking in real time. And as I told you in my show the other night, that you could even, if you're about to give me money in a chat room, you could say, hey, Kevin, could you pick up the mouse on your computer right there? To prove I'm real, to prove you're not talking to a bot. Yeah, have a sip of water. Cheers. Kevin, take your pants off. That one's going to cost you. Right? I'll drop my pants for money, 10 grand. All right, we'll do that. So we can do all kinds of crazy things here, folks. I will prove to you every single time and never get offended when you're asking me to prove that I'm actually on the phone with you. Please make sure that you do that. What if I'm in Quebec and work under a sole proprietorship? Oh my God, never do that. That is the worst thing in Canada to do. We got to get you into a numbered corporation in Ontario and redo your taxes to fix those taxes for you and then never have anything to do with Quebec again in the way of your name being on a Quebec corporation or Quebec proprietorship. Quebec is nuts. Don't ever do that. My Lord, no. Please, no. Alrighty. My husband has CEBA debt. We want to sell his company. Get a hold of me. I want to buy that debt. I truly, truly want to buy that debt. 50 million and still working. Why? No, Mohammed, I'm 50 million in the hole. All right. I'm probably plus about 1.3 million, in reality, but I'm 50 million in the hole with all the debt that I buy and all the debt that the Canadian government has implemented upon me to try to punish me. Whatever. Do I look upset? I look quite happy, don't I? And believe me, I quite am. All right. Everybody here on Rumble and Facebook and X, I got to get going here. It's we're at the 2-hour mark. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Tax and Money Show. We had a great special guest tonight. That's Brett Oland of Bow Valley Credit Union. They're an amazing credit union bank in the province of Alberta. good customer service, good products, good service, and Brett is a genius. So if you have not seen the beginning of this show, please go back and watch the first hour, which you can always do on freedomreport.ca. I'll see you in a week. Have a great night.